Okay, this is part 8 of Federalist number 8. Hamilton goes on to say in this paragraph, the kingdom of Great Britain falls within the first description, an insular situation and a powerful marine guarding it in a great measure against the possibility of foreign invasion, supersede the necessity of a numerous army within the kingdom. A sufficient force to make head against a sudden descent till the militia could have time to rally and embody is all that has been deemed requisite. No motive of national policy has demanded, nor would public opinion have tolerated a large number of troops upon its domestic establishment. There has been for a long time past little room for the operation of the other causes which have been enumerated as the consequences of internal war. The peculiar felicity of situation has, in a great degree, contributed to preserve the liberty which that country to this day enjoys, in spite of the prevalent venality and corruption. He says, relatively speaking, the freedom that the British enjoy, even though sometimes in their palaces their kings and princes are vain and corrupt. Vain, it's somebody that has extreme, sickeningly self-love. They think they're always right. They don't make any mistakes. And corrupt, you know what corrupt is? They're either financially corrupted, they'll do anything for money or for power. So he says, even though they have had vain and corrupt princes, sometimes kings, because they have a small army in land and most of their power is in their navy, they have had opportunity to have institutes that support freedom. Because a small army inside, small standing army inside your country means people are not going to be thinking like second-class citizens, like we talked about. They're not going to say, well, the military is always right, we'll just have to listen to them. And first you think you have to respect them. Then you start thinking they're your superiors. Then before too long, you'll say they're our masters. He says such a thing has not happened in Britain because they have not had a large standing army. And that's what I want of you Americans. If you unite, if you 13 states unite, then New Hampshire or Connecticut won't have to worry about New York, a big state, taking their army in here and invading you and taking over your lands. Because there will be a federal government to stop that. There won't be any need for it because you'll be peaceful and prosperous. And like I've said before, their vision, in a sense, was to make the United States into a huge version of Britain, almost a huge island nation, because you have the Pacific, you have the Atlantic on this side, and you have the Pacific all the way to the other side, and you're not going to be threatened by Canada, and there's not much for you to worry about in the south and what's Mexico, United States border. So they wanted to go all the way to the West Coast and create United States, or make United States be almost like a huge Britain. Small military inside. You'll just have militias, and those militias can be organized in case there's an invasion. And this way you won't lose your freedom. You won't think like you're a second-class citizen compared to your military people. So see, this whole paragraph, first he says, uses the word felicity of situation, such a great situation, such a good situation for them, that they have not had to have a big military inside their land. And we'll continue, if on the contrary, Britain had been situated on the continent, it says if Britain was like France, on the continent, and had been compelled, as she would have been by that situation, to make her military establishment at home coextensive with those of the other great powers of Europe, she, like them, would in all probability at this day a victim to the absolute power of single man. So he says if England was on the continent of Europe, just like France or the other countries there, because they would have to have a standing army at all times, Britain would gradually, Britain by now would have been just like the rest of them, under an absolute monarch, an absolute king. When we say an absolute monarch or absolute king, we mean a king that ruled absolutely by decree and by his force. In other words, he would consider himself to be the lawgiver, to be above the law, to do whatever he wanted with his population. So, the absolute monarch is almost like a tyrant. That's why he says absolute power of a single man. Tis possible, though not easy, that the people of that island may be enslaved from other causes, but it cannot be by the prowess of an army so inconsiderable as that which has been usually kept up within the kingdom. He says there might be reasons that the British might be subdued, might eventually be dominated. He doesn't say anything, but he says, let's say 2-3 countries invade Britain and really bring them under their rule. He says, yes, there's a chance that the British will eventually, under those circumstances, become second-class citizens. But it's not because of their army, because of their standing military. Because of the circumstances, they've been able to keep that standing army, small standing army, minimal, very small. So this way, their rights are not jeopardized. So we Americans, if we unite, will have to have a very small standing army. We won't have to waste a lot of money on that. We won't have to be afraid that our freedoms will be taken away by a tyrant, an absolute king, or a demagogue that will have that army to put down people, and instead we will have all our money and resources devoted to a navy, commerce, trade. And that in turn is our situation, people on this planet. If we stop spending money on all these armies that we keep and all the scare tactics we use, even a tenth of that army, even a tenth of that money will be able to help us find cures for many diseases, will help us fund education for every child on this planet, a wonderful education, will help us make sure that no senior citizen, no person after they retire, they'll have to worry about either paying their bills or paying for their medicine or having a place to live. That is so foolish that in this day and age, with so much in our hands, we devote so much of our time and money into military spending, where with a tenth of that money we can make our lives better, and by extension we can take care of this planet and pray to God, pray to the creator of the universe that way. Because I think there's nothing we can do that will be pleasing to the creator of the universe. Nothing better than making sure that this cradle of life stays healthy for all living beings, not just for human beings, but for all living beings, because we're all part of a web of life. We're strands in the web of life. So part of our challenge would be not to buy the lies or the negative things that people of bad will tell us. People who are not courageous enough to work for their own health and prosperity as well as the next generations. Just don't buy their lies or lack of hope, hopelessness. We can get it done.